RMT update. Let's talk about it. So, today I want to cover what I think about the most recent changes to combat RMT, trying to be as neutral as possible while also adding my own opinion to it. We'll go through this in as much detail as I can. If you already know what RMT is, you can simply go to the time that's on the screen now. Otherwise, drop in, as I think this will be quite a long video. What is RMT? RMT stands for real money trading and is an issue in quite a lot of games, especially Escape from Tarkov. It enables people to go to certain places and buy items and boosting services for real money, which is against the terms of service for almost all the games that are affected by this, but that does not stop it from happening, even if it's a bannable offense to the seller and buyer. Why is it an issue? It's an issue because RMT will almost always come hand in hand with cheating. RMT is a profitable business and cheating simply makes the job more efficient. These people can make enough profit from selling in-game items and boosting that getting banned is not a real issue for them, only a sort of business expense. In addition to this, they will often also fish accounts and use stolen accounts, meaning that getting banned isn't losing them any money either. These people will either come in and kill you straight off, no shame, to take your loadout or whatever loot you've got on you already in your bag, or they'll simply loot all the high value items using ESP and avoiding people if they can, so that they don't get banned as quickly, or they simply use a cheat called something called a loot vacuum, which sucks up all the high tier loot instantly, and they'll simply leave as soon as they can, and only really kill someone if someone's between them and the exit, meaning that they basically don't leave anything of value for the legit players. So if you've ever gone into a lighthouse raid, for example, and you found absolutely nothing, it could be RNG. I personally think you've probably been hit by a lobby that's been sucked up by vacuum cheat. The third way is rather than sucking up items and selling them, they will simply boost the idiot. I mean, they'll boost the paying customer through a labs raid, for example. Kill everyone in the lobby. Let's say they'll kill everybody in the lobby, and the customer simply picks up all the loot. The RMT seller will likely get the loot for them, as they can quickly see where it is to save themselves some time, rather than letting the person loot every drawer in labs. They'll simply go in, kill everyone, loot all the high value items, drop them in the bag, and they'll leave. What has BSG previously done? Now, BSG has already implemented some limitations and changes, but clearly those weren't enough. BSG limited the amount of high value items you can carry in raid at any given moment, be it in raid status or not. I believe 280,000 rubles was the maximum cash you can carry, and I believe it still is. You can't carry more than 2 or 3 bitcoins, I believe, and a ton of other keys and barter items that were used to move money from the seller to the customer were either nerfed in price or had a limited quantity put on them. By adding a limitation to the high value items and keys, it made it more annoying for them, but it didn't really stop it. So, in addition to this, like I just mentioned, they nerfed a lot of these items that were used for these kind of trades. So, for example, if I was to buy a 1 million rubles, rather than going into 4 separate raids and them dropping me 250,000 each time, they might drop me 2 bitcoins, and then the rest value they'll make up by either giving me keys, fuel conditioners, anything that has a high base sell value to therapist or mechanic, anything like that to speed it up, basically. So in addition to that, you were always able to buy very high value items straight off the RMT seller for a high price. So such as multiple LEDX, GPUs, a small SICK case or docs case, colored lab cards are probably one of the most popular ones that you would be able to buy. After these changes were implemented, however, you could tell that boosting became more prevalent. In addition to that, as I previously mentioned, BSG nerfed prices for keys and barter items more and more since they first implemented the quantity limitations. So, for example, the checkpoint key was over 180,000 rubles at one point, and always put a smile on my face knowing that I've made some good money even if I die. What's changed this time around? Now that we've covered what RMT is and what BSG has previously tried, let's get into this most recent patch. First, I want to start off with the fact that clearly BSG has more information behind the scenes than we will ever have. And I'm still convinced that the Lighthouse Keeper event from a couple of weeks ago was more than just adding lore to the game. I think it was a hidden test for the community to see how many people would be pushed to use RMT as a customer if there was no other choice, and also probably see some more drastic activities within accounts of RMT sellers. I believe that most events test the behavior of the community in one way or another. So, for example, the water event, when there was a shortage of water, that simply showed how the community would react. Where would they go for their items instead? Would it push PvP into those zones? That kind of thing. So, some have smaller outcomes and smaller tests, whereas this Lighthouse Keeper event, I think, really showed how bad of a problem RMT truly is, which is why they've now implemented it roughly a week or two after the event is sort of stopped, but it is still kind of ongoing. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. This patch has been more drastic than previous attempts to stop RMT, and it does affect the community more. Essentially, there's now a bunch of items that you can no longer drop. Instead, they will be deleted. Some items are still able to be dropped in limited quantities. However, once a maximum has been reached, and any further item will be deleted. So bear in mind that this limitation only affects not found in raid items, meaning if you find a LEDX, for example, which is now an item that gets instantly deleted if you were to drop it and it wasn't found in raid, you are still able to drop this to your friend without it being deleted within the same raid. If you happen to have any items that are not in raid and you have them in your bag, rig, or pocket and you die, they will simply disappear and no one will be able to loot them. Now, let's look at these limitations in a little bit more detail. So one of them is money. You're still able to carry the, as previously mentioned, 280,000 rubles on you at any time. However, you can only drop 20,000 rubles per raid of non-in-raid money. If you drop any more than that, it'll be simply be deleted. So for example, if you have 100,000 of non-in-raid money in your pocket and you get killed, whoever loots you will only see 20,000 in that slot instead, because anything above 20,000 just gets deleted. This was done to enable you to drop money to a friend whilst taking a car extract, for example. The change isn't terrible. It's an inconvenience. In my opinion, the other person should have brought their own money. 20,000 is enough for around 4 people to extract, assuming they have a normal fence reputation, or for one additional person to extract if they have really bad fence reputation. So the amount is set not terrible in my opinion. And again, if you find money in raid, say you find 200,000 in raid rubles, you can still drop 200,000. That's not an issue. Barter items. You're now unable to drop most barter items that you don't need to bring in for a task, essentially. The exceptions are 3 golden neck chains, 3 gunpowder, 2 tool sets, and 1 roller watch, which are all needed for in-raid tasks. Meaning that if you kill someone and they have those items on them, you can still loot them without being penalized. Or you're able to drop them to your friends in case they don't have the items, but they need to do it for a task. For example, I've dropped plenty of my friends a toolkit early wipe because they just simply didn't have one. In addition, you're also able to drop 1 of each injector, 1 silicon tube, and 1 paracord. The injector I kind of don't agree with. I would like it if they at least allow us to drop multiple morphines or propital, but ultimately I don't think it's a huge change either, as I can't remember dropping my duo anything other than the occasional mule stim or SJ6. Now, the silicon tube and the paracord make no sense to me whatsoever. The silicon tube is currently not required for anything in raid unless it's something that's due to be implemented with a coming patch, and they maybe want to get out ahead with it so they don't forget and screw everyone over. And the paracord change also baffles my mind a little bit. I can't see why I would ever drop a paracord for a friend if we were both using the Red Rebel extract and he forgot his. I would not drop mine to him, as that would mean I can't extract myself, and I would never bring 2 paracords into raid anyway. And if I found another one in raid, I can still drop the in raid one without limitation anyway. Now, maybe the change was made because most people will put their paracord in their rig if they find something more valuable, or they simply don't have enough room in their safe container. So you're still at least able to loot that item. So that makes more sense than the silicon tube. All in all, I don't mind the barter item limitation whatsoever. I've been sort of pushing for this kind of change for a long time. However, I personally would have done a slightly different way about it. First off, I can no longer drop in-raid items such as fuel conditioners, so remove the limitations for these. If I find 20 of them, let me take out 20 of them. The limitation has no real use anymore at this point, as it's a redundant anti-RMT feature. In addition, I would simply not allow anyone to load into raid with any barter items in the first place, with the exceptions of the ones that you require for a task. This would, however, remove the ability to weight train using heavy barter items such as an empty fuel canister or SAS drives, which, to be honest, BSG don't like that anyway, so they could kill two birds with one stone. Keys and keycards. So this is where BSG had a lot of pushback from the community mainly. You're no longer able to drop any sort of key or keycard. This means that communities can no longer share quest keys amongst each other, which is usually quite common early wipe especially, while key prices are very expensive. Labs main content creators can no longer produce the content they would like, as they simply cannot rely on their community anymore to bring in lab cards. So for example, I'm someone that doesn't play labs very often, but I do enjoy watching it, and I honestly don't mind dropping keycards to friends or a certain streamer that I like watching, Double Destroyer. I'll quite happily drop my 4 keycards for her, just simply to enjoy the content that she puts out. And she's only able to put it out because of the community giving her the cards, essentially. So another issue is that duplicate keys, especially called lab keycards, can no longer be given away to someone else in the community, which essentially renders them useless. Today I literally sold my second black keycard for, I believe, 47,000 to Therapist. For the keys especially, I would have preferred them to nerf the sell value for the keys and lower them to dropping a maximum of 5 keys per raid, but limited to 1 of each type. But once again, I believe it's a small price to pay if it lowers the amount of cheaters on RMT sellers, but we'll get to that in a minute. Containers. But this change is straightforward. You can't drop small SIC cases, docs cases, key tools, card holders, ammo cases, magazine cases, anything that you were able to find in raid and bring back into raid, you can basically no longer drop if it hasn't got the in raid symbol on it anymore. It's a simple change that shouldn't really affect anyone apart from RMT sellers and maybe the occasional long-time player that might want to give their starting friend a head start. I remember dropping a docs case for several of my friends on the first day they started, just to make their life a little bit easier. Another change is specific armbands can no longer be dropped. Those would be the rare ones, I'm assuming, such as the Alpha armband. Again, simple change, and it makes sense. They were quite expensive to buy, and they make money on probably stolen accounts, to be honest. Info items, so things such as USB sticks, SAS drives, SSDs, those kind of items, again, make sense that you can't drop them anymore, and no complaint from me. Rare melee weapons can no longer be dropped. Again, no real complaint here. So, my thoughts. So overall, I can see this update putting RMT to a halt for now. As money is far too awkward to sell now, I can see RMT as changing tune and moving towards selling high modded guns, armors, and ammo instead, as there is no restrictions on dropping those. As money becomes useless, I can also see them claiming a sort of monopoly on certain items on the flea, and then selling them as items on their RMT site. For example, gold stars, moonshines, anything that's still droppable and of high value. And potentially also usable for other bartering trades. They can also make use of their bots to buy up limited stock and then sell that stock on the RMT market. In order to avoid this, BSG would finally need to remove the global limitation and stick to player limitations. However, if an RMT site has over 100 accounts sitting around, they would simply be able to trade 100 slicks per reset, sell those super easy on the market, and probably quite cheap to lure customers back in, and still make a massive profit and impact the player base. So maybe keeping the restrictions is for the better. Having that said though, if they're simply trading and then selling it like that, it would keep the cheaters out of a raid. So I don't know. Is it the lesser evil? I don't know. The main obvious issue, however, I and a lot of the community have thought of straight away is that cheaters boosting other players for loot will become an even bigger issue. So RMTs could still sell a GPU. However, in order to receive the item, you will be boosted or carried through a map that have GPU spawns, such as labs. And you'll be carried until you receive the item you require. Obviously, in the meantime, they would simply kill all the legitimate players in the way, and VoIP would mean that the RMTers can talk to each other and discuss what is needed, making sort of a deal amongst themselves and move on without killing each other. I can see RMTers working together in order to keep their way of life. So for example, if RMT carry number 1 was paid for a GPU, and carry number 2 was paid for a full labs carry. I'm sure the full carry will allow them to simply take the single GPU and get out so both can complete their customer deal and not risk losing their own gear set and labs card, if that makes sense. They could also introduce a sort of loot style kind of carry service, like one carry through labs, you keep everything. If it's going to be good or bad loot, I mean, you'll find out. That's the loot box style element to it, along with a sort of discount for multiple runs. This will simply make the game less playable for a lot of people, and I can see labs becoming even worse due to this change. However, this is an educated speculation. As it stands, the update is drastic and harsh, but something I personally don't mind living with, if and only if it truly stops the cheaters. According to Nikita, the amount of RMT and cheating has apparently drastically decreased. However, it's far too early to tell if BSG has won. We'll need to see what the sellers come back with, as they will not go down easy without a fight, as it's their way of making easy money. So we'll need to see how they respond, how many RMTs will simply move over to carry servers instead, and ruin the game more than it already has been. Now, it's a shame that a game like Tarkov, which is all about immersion, has to be altered in such a way to combat cheaters. But again, if it truly works, it's a price I'm willing to pay. But only time will tell. It's far too early to say if it's worked or not. So I think that's basically my thoughts. I believe a good update until we're proven wrong, which might be sooner than we want, to be honest. But again, we'll have to wait and see what the RMT has come back with before we can truly make a decision on if this is a good change. Maybe they'll revert it if they realize it doesn't actually help. Maybe they'll crack down more on it. I'm unsure. We'll have to wait and see. Now, let me know what you think. Do you think it was a good change? Was it a bad change? And most importantly, do you think it has or will achieve what the update is trying to achieve? I believe it's a good update for now, until we start running into cheaters more and more. Equally, only time will tell, to be totally honest. So we'll have to just wait and see if it gets worse from here or better. But other than that, guys, leave a comment on what you think. Alternatively, pop over to Twitch. I'm usually live Tuesday and Thursday to Saturdays from about 7:30, 8 p.m. UK time, and ask me about it. Tell me what you think about this change. I'll quite happily discuss anything, what's happening inside the game and outside the game. But yeah, other than that, guys, as always, please leave a like and subscribe for similar content. My bargain barters will start up again, as I feel like the prices are slowly settling again. In addition, I want to start another series, which is essentially kind of what you've seen in the background while watching this video, is me taking an Ash 12 to snipe the rogues and farming them. And I kind of want to take all the guns, or at least all the calibers, out for a spin to essentially farm the rogues. Some will be harder than others, obviously, but it should be fun. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a nice day, and hopefully see you soon. Nice.